shot, can't spin. Code 6, the ignition.
All right. So I'm here at Code 6 Customs Watch Central, where I produce custom watches and pocket watch conversions, a whole bunch of collector type watches. And I'm about to embark on a project that's going to be kind of brand new to me. In the past, I've turned down jobs where people wanted their own logos on watches because I didn't think it was going to be cost effective. I didn't think people would want to pay the prices. I have a very good relationship with my dial guy who does make my dials and puts my logo on them, but there was a setup fee and it's fairly expensive to get done. You know, once you're set up, you can print them out anytime you want. So I've maintained that relationship with him, but this gentleman wanted his company logo on these watches, and he really wanted to make it happen. And he is a great guy, a good customer of my other watches, and I wanted to make it happen for him. So I reached out to my dial guy, and it turns out that the price wasn't crazy. And so we're going to do this. So that is Nolan Fidale. It's a funeral home in Pennsylvania. And we're going to do chronographs, Daytona homage with the Nolan Fidale dial on it. So I have my parts laid out. Obviously we have the case, we have the bracelet, beautiful polished Centerlink oyster. I'm probably going to leave the plastic on that just to keep it right. We have the hands, some of which are incredibly tiny for the chronographs. We have the movement, which is a Seiko TMI VK63 Mecha Quartz movement. We have the battery for that movement. We have the stem. We have the gasket to try to make it a little more water resistant. And then we have the custom dial. So I'm going to take you through the building of one of these watches. And the building part is not as difficult as you may think. It's not the hardest thing in the world. The hardest thing in the world I have found is to try to do a build on camera. So most likely this will be edited together to get the angles right. The angles are the biggest thing because when I'm working on something, my hands are in front of it. So if the camera's here, you're not going to be able to see it. I got to figure out a way to do that. I've done videos before, but I kind of want to make this one as perfect as possible. So it'll be edited together. I may curse because sometimes things don't always go exactly as planned. But so yeah, so that's our introduction. We're going to be doing Daytona homage chronographs for Nolan Fidale funeral homes. Let's get going. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is the movement. This is a Seiko TMI Japanese VK63 Mecha Quartz chronograph movement. So it is a quartz-driven watch driven by a battery. The mecha part of it refers to how the chronograph operates. So the chronograph operates mechanically. With a typical quartz watch will have a pronounced tick. Right? Tick, tick. Every second you get a tick. On an automatic watch, you have a sweeping seconds hand. It's a sweep. Because an automatic is just it's a self-winding version of a mechanical movement. So the mecha in Mecha Quartz refers to how the chronograph operates. This is a great movement. It has a date wheel on it, but the dial for the Daytona does not have a date window. It just looks a lot cleaner without a date window. So, but this is the only way the movement comes. It comes with a date wheel. And if you look at the chronograph case, you have plungers for the chronograph. These will push in. These are actually screw down lockdown to help with water resistance, but they push in. I will show the functionality of the watch at the end of the video. And that corresponds to, that's where the bottom pusher hits, that's where the top pusher hits, and that's where the stem goes in. So, very, very good movement. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get this dial somewhere where it's protected. I don't anticipate launching anything at it, but you never know. Second thing I want to do is I want to get a movement holder so that we can do what we need to do with the movement. This is never an exact science, and I don't want to cinch this down on the plungers either. So, but I want something to set the movement in. We're going to have to put the battery in. We'll go in there. Sometimes gloves hinder, but they keep it going. So there's a little clip that the battery hold down clips onto, and the battery's in there. So at this point, this is something we have to do with this particular quartz movement. I don't know exactly why. I probably should know exactly why, but basically there's a little thing that says AC and an arrow in that hole. And what I believe this does is it sets the movement or resets the movement or does something. But what you have to do is you have to take metal and basically short it out. I think it shorts it out. I don't know what it does. Either way, you have to do that before you proceed with anything else. So there's that. Next thing I want to do is I want to put my stem on my crown. Now this has a screw down crown also to aid in water resistance. Very difficult to do this on camera. Very thin stem, so you kind of have to be careful, but I'm just going to run this down. I'm going to end up having to cut the stem because they come in long lengths to fit different cases. So this, I'm just going to gently kind of hold that in there and screw the crown down so it is screwed down on the stem, because that'll come into play later. The dial goes on first. Really didn't need to put it in an envelope because it was only in there for 2 seconds. So the dial's going to go on first. Again, I want to kind of tighten that up on the movement so it doesn't move around. I'm going to locate, the stem is right there, so that'll be 3 o'clock. And on this dial, there are feet that press fit in. Do this a little differently, so it makes more sense to me, and probably to you as a result. All right, so I'm going to reposition that so that the stem is now, it's right here. The feet go into, there's holes in the plastic ring that the feet line up with, and it lines up everything. It lines up the chronograph, lines up the chronograph's pinions. Again, very hard to do around the camera. Thinking maybe the dial feet aren't exactly straight at this point, so I don't want to force anything. But if you look at them, they're fairly straight it appeared to me like this one needed to come in a little bit, so I'm just going to put a little, give it a little love push. And let's try that again. And there we are. So the dial is on. If you look in the subseconds or the sub dials, you could see the pinions for the chronograph hands. Up through the middle is the chronograph seconds pinion, the minute wheel, the hour wheel. And that's the scale of stuff we're working on. Yay, watches. So if you see me acting very calm here, this is a learned thing for me because I did 28 years in corrections. I ran a gang unit. I just was involved in chaotic career for 28 years. And somehow I've learned to calm down and build watches. So, first thing I want to do is I want to insert the stem, which just kind of clicks into place. Okay. Now there's no winding for a quartz watch, but you do set the hands, so that has to be in there before we start. So the first thing we're going to do is regroup for a second and edit the video. Okay, so I did a little reset. I wanted to get my tools in order. For setting hands, there are those tools. Basically, I have all my tools within arm's reach. There are more setting tools there. Screwdrivers, tweezers are over here. Some other things, staking sets that I use on pocket watches. I have a digital microscope over there. But I wanted to get my hand setting tools out. I kind of know ahead of time which ones I'm going to need. So they're there. The other tool I'm going to use is this. This is Rodico. This is a sticky, it's like Play-Doh. And watchmakers use it, well, watch builders, whatever, to handle the hands. To put them in place when we set the hands. Now, this is where this is going to get very difficult for me, unfortunately. So I'm going to take this as it goes. But basically, I want to, I'm going to set the hour hand on the hour wheel. Okay. I need to pull it out to hand setting position. I need to make sure this is dead lined up at 12 o'clock, because when you initially set this, it needs to be at 12 o'clock. Also use the Rodico to take any dust particles off that you may see. So you want to start this out dead at 12 o'clock because the other sub-dials will work off of that. So this is a 24-hour military time sub-dial, which will show you military time. It's pretty self-explanatory. The chronograph will operate the sub-dial at the 9 o'clock position. That'll show you how many minutes have gone by on whatever you're timing. And the bottom sub-dial is the seconds hand. So everything is kind of interlocked and it all has to be right from the rip. There's our, let me take a, you know what, I'm going to set that, and then I'm going to take some of that, oh, got dust on it already, it's ridiculous. But I'm going to try to make sure that this is, first of all, make sure it's in camera. I'm going to make sure that this is dead on 12. Again, I said this part is tough for me. Normally I have magnifying headgear on so I could see what I'm doing. Normally I'm able to go straight above it so I can get a good angle, so I can make sure I am exactly where I need to be. Doing it reaching around a camera phone is not the best for business, but it is what it is. So now we have the hour hand and the seconds, or the hour hand and minute hand set. We're going to test functionality. I like to run it around to the 3 o'clock position and make sure that we have a perfect right angle. I want to run it around to the 6 o'clock position to make sure we have a perfect straight up and down line. I say a perfect straight up and down line. There we go. Run it around to the 9 o'clock position, looking for the same right angle. And back to 12 o'clock. So this will represent 12 o'clock midnight. Because the first subdial hand that we're going to set is going to be the 24-hour hand. And that's what we're dealing with. Let me put something up next to it. So this is a watch. Just for size. That's what we're dealing with size-wise. So this, when I set this, it has to be straight up at the 24. I'm going to use a different setting tool and see if I can do this reaching around the camera. This might be an edit point. It's starting to feel like an edit point. We are on the pinion, but I just want to make sure it is. We're not on the pinion. You dope. This is going to be a tough one. Time to regroup. All right, this section of the video is called One Last Try. This is about take, I don't know, 70. But I'm having issues with these sub-second hands. I'm just not able to make it happen on camera. Is that on there? That is not on there. Okay, so this is where I maintain my sanity. I can get these things on normally one shot, but I have to be at the right angle. So right here, I could either do it where I'm at the right angle, but it's not on camera, or I can do it when it's on camera, but I'm not at the right angle. Either way, I can't do this on camera right now. So I'm going to set a hand or two or all three, and then we'll see where we're at. But I'm going to edit out and edit back in, and like magic, the hands will be on. All right, so this is literally 5 minutes later in real time. You can see I have the 24-hour hand set. I have the seconds hand set. If you look as I'm moving the hand setting, the 24-hour hand moves with it. And this has a hacking feature. So when you pull it out to set the time, seconds hand stops. And that was to allow military people to synchronize their watches. They would pull their crown out. They would set the time without the seconds hand moving, and then they would 3, 2, 1 hack, and then everybody would push their crowns in, and the seconds hand would start moving. So you see the seconds hand moving down there at the 6 o'clock subdial. Now, I'm going to hack it again, because the next thing we have to do is I have to set the subdial hand at 9, which is going to count the minutes of whatever you timing on your chronograph. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that the chronograph function itself is set properly. So showed you the plungers before. So what we have to do is we have to depress this one, and that would set the chronograph in motion. Then you depress it again, and that would stop the chronograph. And you depress the bottom one, and that resets everything at 12 o'clock. So that resets your chronograph at 12 o'clock, resets the minute counter at 60 on top, and that's how the chronograph functions. So I'm going to cut away again so I can set that hand. But it's very important that that hand is set right at 60 because it's part of a timer. I'm going to cut away and cut right back in, and it'll be on there like magic. And literally 3 minutes in real time. Since I cut, I have the subdial hand at 9 set at the 60. Everything is lined up nicely. The final piece to the puzzle will be the long seconds hand for the chronograph, which is this guy. All right, so on the bottom of this guy is that little tiny hole on that shaft, and that's got to go in that little tiny pinion that's sticking up that I can't focus on. You can see it there up the middle, and you can see it a little bit there. There you go. There's a good angle. That little seconds pinion that's sticking up, that's where that seconds hand is going to go, and it's very critical that it is dead up and down at 12 o'clock or your chronograph is not going to work. And you're not going to use your chronograph a lot, so it really needs to be straight up and down at 12 to actually look right while you're not using it. So I'm going to cut away and be right back. Alright, so once again, as if by magic, I now have that seconds hand set for the chronograph. So let's bring the watch back to life again. You see the seconds hand at 6 o'clock moving. I'm going to set the chronograph into motion by depressing the top plunger. And that long seconds hand will sweep to time whatever you're timing. Now, to stop it, you're going to press the top plunger again. And it stops it. And then you're going to press the bottom plunger. And that will reset it. It's going to whip back to 12. There you go. So, that's all that. And now we can case the movement. All right, so in order to case the movement, you need the case. Let me move this out of the way. So there's your case. The back of it is actually threaded to use a Rolex tool to get it off. That's how close these homages are. There's your case. There's your case back. It screws on to help with water resistance. These are not waterproof. They are built to be water resistant, but I do not recommend submersing them in water or anything. So make sure the crystal's clean. I'm going to set that down because in order to case it, we have to remove the stem. All right, so I cut away, knowing damn well if I couldn't set the seconds hands, I couldn't pull a stem on camera either. But that is the stem that is going to have to be cut down because it's too long. I like to use the case back as a platform, and we're just going to gently bring the case down, clearing the plungers. And that's what she's going to look like cased. Turn it over. Protect that crystal. And there it is from the back. Now I want to try to set the chronograph in motion to make sure nothing's going to come in contact with the crystal. Nothing's going to come in contact with any of the hands. And we want to make sure it snaps back to 12, and it does. So we're in good shape. Put the stem back in, which is just literally finding the hole. And easing it back in. Stem is in. Now we have to cut it, which is also something I'm really not going to do on camera, but I'll show you how I do it. Have to get a micrometer. Zero it, obviously. I'm going to measure the distance between the case and the edge of the crown. 6.08 millimeters. So we have to take off 6.08 millimeters of the stem, and everything should fall into place nicely off camera. All right, stem has been cut. The end has been filed. The crown has been put back on. And this should go in and be very close to the right length. So it's into the movement. She's still ticking. We screw the crown down. We have a perfect fit. I'll screw the plungers down. Movement's in, everything's working. Time to put the case back on. All right, so the case back screws down, and it's used in conjunction with a gasket to aid in water resistance. So you have to grease the gasket. Yes, it's made in China. Everything's made in China. Grease the gasket so it seals nicely. You lay the gasket into the channel. Start the case back on hand tight, but then I use this high-tech watchmaker's tool, and you just basically screw the case back down, and there it is. The next step will be to clear my bench a little bit. And we put the bracelet on. Alright, so I cleared down a little bit. Give myself room to put the bracelet on. This is a very nice piece. It's going to make be very nice. Bracelet goes on upside down. Now, I did remove the plastic from the bracelet because I'm going to take a link out, because you have to take a link out anyway to size it, and it makes it easier to install the bracelet. I did leave the plastic on the clasp to protect that while I do this. So these are screw links for adjustments. What you're going to do is we're going to remove a screw. So now we are two separate sections of the bracelet, so they'll go on easier. I'm going to take this time to actually remove a link, because I know I'm going to have to at least remove one link, possibly more than one, but for my size it's at least one link. So we're going to take the link out, and now we have two different pieces of the bracelet to install on the head. So we're going to start it kind of where it needs to be. I'm going to feed in a spring bar. Kind of push it down into place. I'm going to use the spring bar tool to set things where they need to be. So we're going to run one of the spring bars in, and we're going to pull the other one in, the other side. We're just going to work it back and forth a little bit until it pops in and right back out. Until it pops in, both sides. And you're just going to rock the spring bar in until it catches the holes. And give it a little coercion. And once it catches the holes, you are golden. I think I have one in and one out. So that, and we're good. So we're going to do the other side. It's going to be the same concept. We're going to start the end link in with the lugs, or not. We're going to start the end link in with the lugs, and we're going to put the spring bar through. We're going to do the same thing to this side. A little bit on each end until they both clear the lugs. And then a little coercion to get them to find their holes. Once you're in, you're solid. Really taking shape now, huh? So we got to put the bracelet back together. You hear my dog in the background because she constantly needs attention when I'm busy. Feed that screw down in there. Now, if you're sizing your own bracelets, you gotta be careful never to force anything. So you want to get it down there, and then when you start screwing it in, you definitely don't want to force anything. So you're going to start it without much pressure. You're just going to try to let it find its way. You're never going to press real hard, and if you meet any resistance, you got to stop. You got to back it up a little bit and just make sure it finds the threads on its own and you're not forcing it. And there you go. So, obviously right upside down. So now you have the Nolan Fidale Edition Daytona Homage by Code 6 Customs. Beautiful piece. I'm going to come back and I'm going to run you through the functions of the chronograph once again. I'm going to run you through the functions of the adjustable clasp on the bracelet. And we're golden. Alright, and there it is. That is the Code 6 Customs Nolan Fidale Daytona Edition. Beautiful piece. Fully functional chronograph. Polished center link oyster bracelet. I'm going to show you how to use some of the functions of the watch. Now you see the seconds sub-dial at 6 o'clock ticking. That's the quartz part. So it's driven by a battery and you get that quartz tick. In order to set the time, you're going to unscrew the crown until it pops out. And then you're going to pull it. You're going to feel 2 clicks. First click is the ghost click. That's where the date would be if this had a date window. It doesn't. You pull it all the way out to that second position and you rotate it away from yourself to change the time. Now, if you look at the sub-dial at 3 o'clock, that is moving in synchronization with the hour and minute hands. So that's military time. So it is 8 o'clock, but by the military time, it's 2000 hours. You see a couple clicks past 16. So that's military time. If you continue on, that is now 10 after 10, and that is 2200 hours. So when you're done setting the hands, you push it back in, you'll feel a click. You will push against the spring to guide it onto the threads. And now your time is set. To use the chronograph, you're going to unscrew these plungers. To start that chronograph seconds hand, that long seconds hand, you're going to depress the top plunger. And there it goes. So that is the mecha part of the mecha quartz movement. That seconds hand is sweeping because it's controlled mechanically. Now as this continues on, going to look at the subdial at 9 o'clock that's pointing at 60. So whatever you're timing, when it hits a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, that hand is going to move to indicate how many minutes have gone by. I'm not going to bore you with that. To stop the chronograph, you press the top plunger again, and to return it to 12, you press the bottom plunger, and it's going to whip back to 12 o'clock. You always want to screw your plungers back down to aid in water resistance. Now, these are not waterproof. I do not claim for them to be waterproof. They are built to manufacturer's specs, which would make them highly water resistant, but I do not warranty for any water damage or any moisture, because you have to screw the crowns down. If you don't screw them down properly, you're going to have problems. So your clasp is a double locking deployant with an adjustability feature very similar to a Rolex glide lock, because this is a very close homage. So to open the clasp, you're going to go into that little fingernail slot. You're going to open the first lock. You're going to go in from the end and open the second lock. And there it is. So to use the glide lock feature, I'm going to try to zoom in. This is kind of infinitely adjustable. And what you do is you're going to pull up on the end and you're going to feel that pop. You don't want to force it. You don't want to twist it. You just have to make it happen as gently as possible, but you might need to put a little force on it. But don't, if you meet too much resistance, don't force it. And that will allow this to slide in and out kind of infinitely. So if you need to tighten it up, you slide it in and you pop the link back in. To loosen it up, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to pull up on it, slide it out, and lock it back down. So that's your glide lock. And that is your Code 6 Customs Nolan Fidale Daytona Edition. And there it is. The first company logo Code 6 Customs 5-piece going out to Nolan Fidale.
Tick-tock, hand spin, code 6, the ignition. Others out here fishing, but they miss in the vision. Polish on the bezel, revolution on the wrist. They imitate the wave, but the tide don't twist. Craft sharp, sharper than a shattered sapphire. They stuck in the mud, we walk through fire. Blueprint stolen, but they fumble the design. Wanna chase the throne, but the crown's still mine. Code 6, code 6. The king, the throne, the crown. They try, they fail, can't ever break us down. Tick-tock, they watch, but they can't match the sound. Code 6 Customs, we forever wear the crown.